Happy New Year, everybody. Already seems like a distant memory to me, but maybe that was the trials and tribulations of getting down to Oxford wading through flood water and all the underlying fields that came down on the train. I always enjoy being here at Oxford. The timing means it's always firmly focused on looking ahead, looking at the challenges and the opportunities that our industry faces. And that particularly resonates with us from an Agri-Tech Centres perspective this year. We feel we're at a really exciting stage for agri-food and for us. And you'll perhaps all be aware that we've got 3 Agri-Tech Centres that are coming together. And we're in the process of developing what is going to be the largest dedicated agri-tech organisation to have ever existed in the UK. In what's a hugely complex and complicated and challenging subject area, we're going to be pulling together some phenomenal expertise and know-how. But I think it's more than that. I think for me, really what kind of comes out and working with, not just having worked at CL for a couple of years, but working with colleagues from CHAP, working with colleagues from Agri-Epi. Actually, in one organisation, we've got people who want to make a difference, people who are passionate about what they do, people who care about our industry and want to drive impact. So in one step, I think we're simplifying the landscape. We're making it easier to navigate. That applies to ourselves, as organisations, but also makes it simpler for everybody else that we work with as well. It means we all work smarter, more efficiently, and we remove some of those sector and technology silos. And I think that's really the catalyst as well for us to be able to think bigger. We can think much more longer term. We can think about the bigger picture, and we can think differently around some of our food systems. I think it's fair to say that across the centres, we're already doing bits where we're starting to think more around circularity. What lies ahead in terms of coming together just takes us to that next level. And that's critical to our vision of really working with industry to deliver world-leading agri-innovations that sustain the environment, the economy, and society. And look, you'll see more from us in terms of due course, more from us in due course in terms of future plans. But we are keen to stress that where we're heading in terms of our future is all about working in partnership. And I can't emphasize that enough. I think we're here to join up what is a really fragmented industry. And albeit an industry that is a key part of our economy. I'm sure we might hear it from the main stage over the next couple of days, but we often forget that the UK's food and drink industry is the biggest manufacturing sector, larger than automotive and aerospace combined. But it's got some massive structural challenges to innovation, and anybody who works in this space will probably be aware of those. And I think having multinationals sit along thousands of relatively small primary producers is just one of those. That imbalance we potentially see in terms of the supply chain from field to fork feels like one of the key barriers for me. So making sure that we do join up that fragmented network is critical from my perspective. And as centres, we already do that to some extent. I think we bridge the gap between ideas and between impact. We know research and industry exist in different bubbles. They speak different languages. They have different goals, different targets, different aims. And as centres, we've learned, we think, how to effectively translate the needs and requirements of industry to support innovators and researchers in developing commercial products and services. And ultimately, trying to drive forward products, ideas, services that are adopted by industry and have impact. And as one organisation, I think we can bridge this gap, this innovation gap, much more effectively in a more sustainable, more impactful way. And then ultimately, it's going to be about stimulating collaboration and innovation across that whole UK ecosystem. So really looking forward to partnering with, continue to partner with a whole host of people that we work with now, but also taking some of our partnerships and relationships to another level. And look, I do think we need a collective effort if we're to tackle some of those grand challenges that lie ahead for us as a agri-food sector. Those challenges for the global food and farming sector are complex, and they shape what we do, both as businesses as part of the supply chain, but also for us as consumers. We all get impacted by some of the challenges that are coming our way. We all know that food and farming is a sector that is hugely influenced by policy change. We've got a lot of that to come, and that continues to shape our industry and how successful it is. I'm pretty sure that we'll hear some of the 4 key challenges that we flag and we're talking about from an Agri-Tech Centres perspective around sustainability, food security, disease pressures, labour and productivity. I'm sure we'll hear them get mentioned regularly over the next 36 hours. But these are the factors that really do provide the context and backdrop for the new Agri-Tech Centre. And we've got the potential to take them out of their sector silos and ensure that they're reflecting some of the challenges of thinking around circular systems and using resources more efficiently and more sustainably. Now, as a sense check, we did some industry survey work with our members back in December, effectively asking what the big issues are that industry wants Agri-Tech to be focusing on in future. The word clouds mirror the challenges and themes that we've identified, and Helen will share those later on this morning. Of course, for us, identifying the challenges is just the beginning. We do want to take action to challenge them. The grand challenges for us translate into a set of strategic themes via which Agri-Tech Centres will support the acceleration of ideas to ensure that we're delivering impact for UK businesses. And that includes, optimizing production efficiency, transitioning to net zero whilst maintaining and enhancing ecosystems, supporting robust and diverse production systems, enhancing welfare, addressing challenges around food safety, nutrition and quality of agricultural products, and harnessing that power of automation, of robotics, of data and AI. Some huge potential that emerges for us. And there's a tremendous diversity of areas for us to cover when it comes to looking at our future as one Agri-Tech organisation. And that's hugely exciting. And of course, we're coming at this with strong momentum as well. We've got years of experience across the three centres. We've got a wealth of know-how in terms of our teams and resources. We've got well-established networks across the industry, across research and across innovation. And just what I want to focus on this morning in this breakout session is just to give a snapshot of some of the diverse activity that's taking place across the centres. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Dave, who's from Agri-Epi, who's filling in for Ruth Bastow from CHAP. Ruth had disease pressures of her own. She picked up COVID over the Christmas break. So Dave and I, Dave will pick up some of the potato examples that CHAP have been working on. Then Trish from Epi is going to talk about some of the biodiversity work they've been doing, and then Helen from CL is going to finish off. So that's the running order for between now and getting onto the main stage. I'll hand over to Dave in a second, and Dave and I have both got a bit of a shared background in the potato industry, albeit going back almost to the last millennium, I think, Dave. And I think it's fair to say that the potato industry has changed a phenomenal amount since I was involved in it. I worked at the British Potato Council, who were, 3 miles up the road that way, 25 years or so ago. And it's an area that was a sector that was having huge amounts of consolidation, much more mechanisation, more larger scale kit. My gosh, that has continued at an awfully rapid pace from a potato angle. Like a lot of sectors, the arable sector has fewer tools in its toolbox in terms of being able to manage some of those pests and disease challenges that only seem to amplify year after year. The levy landscape has, of course, changed for potatoes. I was there as it was transitioning from Potato Marketing Board into British Potato Council. It's gone through more changes since, and actually that loss of an AHDB levy has resulted in a decline of some of the R&D funding that has been going into the sector, which I think CHAP in particular have tried to pick up. And then, of course, we have some of those challenges in terms of the issues that we all face as primary producers, that global uncertainty, that tremendous volatility that we see in markets these days, adapting to some of that change, adapting to some of the pressures around key inputs has been a key challenge. So one of the things that we try to do is kind of think about those grand challenges that we talk about, and those sorts of issues that the potato sector faces do match relatively well in terms of the sustainability challenge, particularly in terms of trying to address some of the addresses around carbon footprint. And that's a massive one in an area like potatoes, where you're thinking about effectively a crop that requires significant inputs. It is about trying to identify where you can make marginal savings that collectively add up. food security aspect and trying to make sure that, again, future production methods and storage technologies, trying to make sure we're minimizing any losses through waste. That starts to come through. Disease pressures is something that certainly kind of comes through in the projects that CHAP have been working on. I'll leave Dave to pick that up. And I suppose one of the key aspects around future production systems across all parts of our food supply chain relate to labour challenges, relate to mechanisation. And I know that's an area increasingly that CHAP are kind of keen to look at, potentially bridging any of those labour shortages, but more importantly, how do they make sure that you get continued automation of processes and making sure the supply chain works more effectively. So that's me mining my potato knowledge from 25 years ago. I'm going to get back to the livestock focus now, and I'm going to hand over to Dave, and we'll test his potato knowledge from 25 years ago.
I will say I only discovered Phil was with the Potato Marketing Board and British Potato Council 24 hours ago. I'm going slightly off-piste already, but one of the things that we used to do with the Potato Marketing Board was come up and pitch new ideas to the Potato Marketing Board and try and secure. So Phil was actually gamekeeper and I was poacher. And one of the things we tried to get them going on was something called potato wedges, which was a 30-year-old thing that we tried to get going. And they've actually happened. You get potato wedges everywhere now. So sometimes it can work, you know. So all good. So moving on to the next, or is it already there? I'm covering for Ruth, so this is a bit of an amateur's guide to the projects that are underway in CHAP. But interesting that they cover a number of different areas, and the challenges are still there, the disease challenges are still there, the pressures are still there, the pests are still there, and there's a whole range of current and topical projects that are going to run in and over into the new entity and be delivered in the course of the coming years, and therefore then have that impact thereafter. First one I'm talking about is DSIST, which is, I guess, the PCN, which is a perennial issue in the potato sector, using trap crops to try and effectively fool the PCN into hatching and then not having a food source in which to consume, but using a different agronomic approach in the potato sector to actually implement that. But it's a novel and interesting way of reducing the PCN burden in fields. Potato Light is another project that actually involves CHAP and to an extent Agri-Epi as well, and it's looking at regen ag. You would have thought that for a potato sector it's really intensive, it's highly mechanized, etc. How can it adopt a regen ag approach? Well, this project is actually looking at that. It's actually looking constructively and intensively at things like monitoring live greenhouse gas emissions. It's looking at tillage mechanisms to minimize tillage. You know that you can disrupt the soil health by excessive tillage, and it's looking at a new effectively a new a new blueprint for producing carbon-friendly intensive potato production. Now, the next one is, it's more about an R&D facility. So that was looking at the crop storage capacity across the UK. And you'll be well aware of Sutton Bridge has been was the Potato Marketing Board a long time ago, but it was the national recognised facility for potatoes. It's now no longer functioning. Therefore, the industry still needs to meet the current challenges on storage, etc. It needs those facilities, and not just potatoes. It's a wide range of horticultural produce. So this was an industry consultation, some investment placed, and it's regional across the UK at different scales. There are mobile chambers that can measure a whole range of parameters. There are fixed chambers that can measure a number of parameters. And again, these facilities are generic for a range of horticultural crops and meet the challenges of things like controlled atmosphere storage, trying to go beyond the industry norm and trying to push the boundaries such that you can understand how better to get shelf life extension or better crop storage in the UK. Again, tying in with all sorts of other thematics like food security, getting a better window of supply across the UK. And The last one is the development of microbe-derived fungicides against potato late blight. Again, the pressure for reducing chemical application is always there. The registration and approvals for new chemistries becomes more expensive and more expensive. And therefore, looking at biologics as an alternative mechanism of control. So this is looking at the different methods and screening methods to actually isolate biological control methods to see how effective and the efficacy against potato late blight actually is. And again, it becomes another tool in the toolbox for the industry that produces a result that the industry wants, but certainly is something that is derived from a more, shall we say, environmentally friendly source. Now, for these projects, they don't happen in isolation. They happen with a whole range of partners. And you can see here, I'm not going to name check them all, but you can see here the variety of partners that are involved in these particular projects. You've got a range of academic partners. You've got a range of industry partners that are working together in a collaborative venture. And this is a more generic comment. The centres themselves and the new entity, I'm sure, will continue the opportunity to work with our collaborators and partners and members to develop these collaborative opportunities. And I'm hoping that in 5 to 10 years' time, when we've successfully launched and we've created a much larger entity in future, that we'll see far more of these projects with multi-dimensional academic and industry partners and farmers involved in those projects. This is a kind of a picture slide, which some of you will be aware of what we've just been discussing and talking about, and some of the instrumentation that's used in the screening. That is me just quickly skimming through something that is dear to my heart, shall I say, but something that I'm not particularly involved in. So please be gentle with questions on these particular topics later on. Okay, thank you. Handing over to Trish.
Thanks. Unfortunately, I don't have the excuse that Dave has, so you can be less gentle with me for questions later. So I'm from Agri-Tech. I'm the Chief Technical Officer, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about biodiversity monitoring project we've got running, which could kind of show how we're using consortia partners, some academic research, and on-farm testing to sort of see how we can use intelligent agriculture to sort of really forward and make biodiversity monitoring more accessible. So this is a biodiversity monitoring 24/7 project. It was basically brought about, the funding was from Innovate UK and the DEFRA's Farmer and Innovation Programme, and this was one of our farmer-led pieces of research. So the farmer come to us, it's one of our sort of network farms, and she said, well, look, we're doing biodiversity monitoring. It's really expensive. I know a lot of my friends who also have farms can't afford to have an ecologist come out and do the monitoring in the way that I do. So is there any automated things out there that we can sort of test to see if that can be better? So we put together a project with her and with some partners. So we've got Pollenize, AgriSound, Cheer Up, and then the Dorset Wildlife Trust, who had been doing their ecology surveys. And what we've done is we've sort of, the project's been led by the farm owner and also ourselves. So we've been helping with that technology integration as kind of the neutral central party. So we don't own any of the products. We don't have a vested interest in seeing them work. We're here, as Phil said, to sort of bring together those consortia as an enabling partner to sort of facilitate that research and make sure that what we're looking at is how it all fits together. So the project has been run on a 500 hectare organic dairy farm in Dorset, and as we said, she had a fairly good baseline anyway, and I'm not sure how well you can see it on the slide under the light. There's quite a lot of data samples taken across the farm throughout the year. So this started in 2023. And what we did is we looked at what was available and sort of commercially, but also pre-commercial. So was there anything out there that people could buy, but maybe weren't buying because they weren't sure whether it would work for their farm, how good that would be? Is there anything that was being developed that was pre-commercial, needed a little bit of extra? And how could we use traditional methods to validate that technology so that actually at some point somebody can say, well, have you tried that out? Does that work for my farm? We're not going to say that that product's good or that product's bad, but the project as a whole is assessing that. So everything, all of the products that have been tested with the farmer, she's been given feedback throughout how easy it is, how it's fitted into the farming system, and that's all been tested with the Dorset Wildlife Trust and that existing partnership that she had. So I'm not going to go into all of the data. They didn't give me enough minutes for me to go through all of the different bits. So I've just done a little bit of a slideshow. There'll be a report coming out shortly. We have got a YouTube video on it as well, so if you're interested, and Tom has done some podcasts as well. So it is, you know, if you're interested, definitely go in. But there were loads of observations. What we did, I mean, the Dorset Wildlife Trust did a very traditional walkthrough, and you try and get a nice, quiet, sunny day so you get as many species as possible. But actually, with some of the others, with the sound data, that was running 24/7. So actually, we were getting pollinators at night, the moths. Nobody thinks of moths as pollinators, but actually they're as important as the bees. So basically, we got a large array of species, some of which hadn't been identified previously on their baseline and their walkthrough. So actually, what this has allowed them to do is really look at that farm in a much more in-depth way. There's a maverick bit, so there were a couple of identifications that went, that can't actually be that. They're only found on Snowdon. So there are some work to do. So actually what we identified is, although the technology is very good and could be affordable for a lot more farmers, actually there is still some work to do. So it's not quite on all of it ready to roll out, because you'd think, oh my gosh, I should be a special scientific interest because we've got this one thing that's not found anywhere else in the world or only in Canada. Yeah, I think we probably need to look at that data a little bit more. So it does actually sort of give us that sort of recommendations and looking at that. So what we thought we'd do, we were really interested in this technology, and we have sort of a network of commercial farms, 25 farms that we work with across the UK. And we decided to deploy some of this technology across those farms to see actually how that would work, not just on a project that we're running with lots of partners, but actually whether that works within a commercial farming sector. So we've deployed those across different ones in different areas this year. That's something we're getting really good feedback from our farmers. They're really interested in the data that's coming through. They like to have that visibility in that data, and it's something that we'll actually be rolling out across more of our farms. We don't have farms in every different area and every different sector, but we can cover a wide range. So we can compare maybe our organic dairy farm in Dorset with a sort of a non-organic dairy farm in Scotland. We know there's going to be a difference, but it's interesting for us to see whether that technology works across for both of them. So that's what we're doing on that. So watch this space. We will be rolling that out. We will be giving regular updates. So this is something that we've started as Agri-Epi as a project, but actually this will continue within the 3 centres. And actually, if anybody's interested in this, would like to put projects in, maybe has a farm network or farms and are interested in sort of being involved in the development of projects like this before, we're definitely interested in sort of how we can roll that out. Again, from an academic perspective, there weren't academics involved in the particular project I've just spoken about, but actually it is something that I've spoken to colleagues at Harper Adams about, and how we can sort of roll that through on the sort of academic projects as well. But what we've done, and what I've done, hopefully given you a little snapshot of us, is basically intelligent agriculture is something that we need to look at, we need to investigate, but actually it can have real world impact. If we sort of look at how we can do that and how as centres we can help those companies bring technology forward that is relevant to the farming sector, to the whole agricultural system, then that really helps. And in the past at Agri-Tech, we've helped co-develop the UK leading Earth observation products, and that's sort of in market and has a massive uptake within farms. We help multiple commercial ag tech food solution developments. We've helped with farm demonstration and adoption. We know that farmers buy from other farmers. They don't necessarily buy just from a tech company. We help tech companies sort of spin into the UK. So we have landing pads for companies coming into the UK, and we've seen higher uptake of their products because they've got a UK base. They've started to know how to talk to other companies and farms within the UK. And we're really good across all of the centres at enabling consortium building for technology development across all ag sectors. And that's something that's not going to change. We're going to be here helping you build those partnerships, helping you build those projects to have that impact in the real world that you need. So that's me. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Trish. So my name's Helen Brooks. I head up the business development team at CL. So again, just going to briefly sort of a bit of a presentation of two halves. So the first half, again, just going to highlight some of the really important project work that we're doing and the collaborations from a One Health point of view. And then secondly, as Phil mentioned earlier, just take a look at the networks and that sort of ecosystem that each of the three centres are working in together, and how we're working to bring those networks together as we move forward as the three centres. So from a One Health point of view, real-time data is extremely important and is in growing importance across not just the livestock sector, but all of the agricultural sector. And it's just as important when we're looking at animal health, animal disease surveillance, etc. So there's a growing area and a growing interest in terms of pen-side diagnostics. So just going to give you an overview of one of these projects that is doing just that, so Immunology. So this project is really looking at the absorption of immunoglobulins from colostrum. So I don't know how many of you are completely savvy with the rearing capabilities of dairy cattle and dairy beef, but certainly colostrum is one of those key important areas where we need to get that right. It needs to be quickly, it needs to have the right quantity, and it needs to be of the right quality. So what this sort of project is doing is looking to develop that pen-side diagnostics instead of it being a laboratory tested operation. So something that farmers and or collection centres can do very quickly within about 10 minutes to identify the levels of immunoglobulin that are actually being transferred into the calf, and looking at doing that at less than a week old, which at the moment hasn't really been the gold standard. But we're looking at developing this commercial product to the gold standard that is currently done through the laboratory area. And as I said, this is looking to be done both on farm, with the vets, and at those collection centres. And that's really important to start to change some of the behaviours that we're looking to develop with this test. For farmers to adopt some of these tests, for vets to have these tests in their cars and to be able to deliver on farm, and for the collection centres to be able to utilise them as part of their strategies for the management practices, both on farm and at the collection centres. And again, I think as we've sort of touched on specifically through the potato ones that Phil and Dave were talking about earlier, impact of these projects is quite often not seen for quite a while. The adoption that is needed to change behaviour on farm can take quite a while. So actually the results that this project is actually showing are really, really positive. We're looking at, depending on the levels of immunoglobulins that are coming through from the colostrum, if we're getting to levels of sort of a 10% transfer, we're looking at 10% daily live weight gains. So that, you know, that's fantastic for sustainability, that's fantastic for productivity as well. We're also looking at a reduction of 46% of antibiotic use in the rearing period. So by doing one thing, identifying that is really, really important for 46% reduction. So that's a huge impact from just one project and one product development. That then enables us to sort of maximise management processes, maximise opportunities, maximise the rearing production, maximise profits for both the rearers and the primary producers at the same time. So it's a really, really impactful project that's going on. But it's not the only project going on. And actually, these are just a few of the organisations that CL and the centres are actually working with at the moment, looking at pen-side diagnostics, whether that be enteric disease, whether that be sort of genetics, or whether that be a whole host of other sort of health opportunities, including fertility. So behind each of these sits a consortium, and as we've discussed today, really is that importance around consortium building that we are looking as the Agri-Tech Centres to really sort of drive forward and develop as we move into the transition period into the merger that Phil was mentioning this morning. So just a really quick overview of that sort of one of those key projects and other projects that are going on, and very happy to sort of take questions on those, or indeed signpost you to the leads in any of those projects if you have further questions. So as Phil mentioned, the network that the three centres has is extremely important to the work that we do and the work that we're going to be doing moving forward. And at the moment, we have almost 500 individual organisations across the three centres that we're working with on a range of projects and opportunities, be they sort of grant funded or be they commercial based. And the opportunity here really in December, as Phil was saying, was to understand, why do they engage with us? What's the point? And actually, what do they want to see moving forward? What are their challenges and how can we help to address those, not just as the Agri-Tech Centres, but as the whole industry? And so we asked some pretty simple questions. The first one sort of being, why do you want support from the Agri-Tech Centres? Why do you want to engage with us? What are the benefits that you're seeing? And, what's driving you to do this work in the first place? And really, these were some of the sort of key areas that have come out. So, brilliantly for me, knowledge exchange came out as one of the top ones and one of the real reasons why people do engage with us. They want that support to actually get the knowledge out. They understand that actually being part of a network, being part of a community, really has that opportunity to help to drive knowledge exchange. The grant support, I think all of the projects that we've talked about this morning have been sort of Innovate UK funded or Research Council funded, and so that's a real opportunity to bring people together. The networks, the collaborations, all come as part of that as well. And then what was important to them now? So thinking about, what were the things that were driving them? What were their challenges? Now, I don't think there's any surprises on this screen, at all. They're quite sort of high level, sort of grand challenges that Phil's talked about this morning, and probably we all talk about on a daily basis. But actually, it's nice almost to have that one picture that actually we are all driving towards the same thing. And as an ecosystem, we are all moving towards those challenges that an industry, we can all take those steps towards. And then just as importantly, what comes next? So what are our members, what are the sort of the networks looking to actually develop further as we take our steps forward as the new Agri-Tech Centre? And it's really, really lovely for me especially to see this systems approach really coming through. And for me, that's the real absolute number one benefit of coming together, the three centres coming together as one, is a more systematic approach, because that's where we're seeing a lot of our projects go. It's not just about picking off one little bit at a time, it's having a systems approach and it's understanding how that impact can really be taken forward into the industry, maybe in the next 6 months, maybe in the next 6 years, but taking those steps to do that as a systematic approach. So, I will shut up at that point and hand over to Dave to see for a summary. Oh, Phil, oh no, I have no idea who I'm handing over to right now. This is seamless, isn't it, everyone? Someone hopefully is going to come and stand up on stage and do a summary and take questions. I'm just going to walk off. I'm walking off the stage. Marvellous. Thanks, everyone.
So I'm going to stay standing for the questions, because then I'll let you guys sit down. But happy to take any questions. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and ask Trish a question. Maybe we start because so I'm interested. What did all that data that was gathered?
Yes.
What was the next steps for the farmer that was involved? Because they obviously learned an awful lot about the biodiversity on their farm. How did it change what they were going to do?
Yeah, so that was quite interesting because she'd had quite a long baseline anyway and been working with the Dorset Wildlife Trust for quite a while. And she said she will continue working with the Dorset Wildlife Trust, but actually they weren't sort of geolocating where they found when they were walking their transepts, it weren't geolocating. So she's asked them to change the way they collect the data so that it's a little bit more thing, and she wants to continue using the automated data collection and has asked us to look at doing another project with her because she wants to take this further. So she was really, really interested in seeing some species that are rare to Dorset, but we'd actually got photographic evidence of them being there. So super pleased. And then is going to be planting different sort of plant banks around the farm to help sort of bring some more diversity in. So she's got a whole array of things that she's going to do next, but really, really pleased, and hopefully another project out of it at some point. Yeah.
Good stuff. And so, Helen, you talked about Penside Diagnostics, and this is a livestock farmer in me who's got a TB test coming up in a few weeks. My gosh, I wish we could try and improve some of the diagnostics and some of the stuff around TB. It's stressful for animals and farmers alike, and that feels like it's an area that just hasn't moved forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have some ongoing projects in the area of TB, which are showing really positive sort of steps forward. It's one of those areas that, yeah, we're not there yet, but we certainly are now taking the steps forward, and great to see that there is funding coming through for it specifically as well.
Good stuff. So opening up to questions, I've got Tom at the front, and then I've got Adam over there, and then jump to the right. So Tom, if you go first.
Yes, my question's for you, Phil. In fact, I've got two questions.
If I'd have known that, I'd have started with Adam, right?
First of all, so Tom Anstey with British On-Farm Innovation Network. I struggle to explain to my farmers what the role of the Agri-Tech Centres is. And farmers view AHTB as the provider of research for them primarily. So could you, first of all, just differentiate between where what AHTB do and what you do in terms of how that delivers to the farmer? And secondly, with the merger, I understand there's talk of a catapult in April. I don't really understand what a catapult is and what difference that makes, again, from a farmer's perspective.
Cool, okay, and I might call Dave in for this one. In terms of the look, in terms of the catapult aspect, let's pick that up first. So from my perspective, look, catapults are government's chosen way of trying to speed up and accelerate innovation in some really challenging high priority sectors. So I think what it starts to do is give a longer term focus. It gives focus and clarity within government, and I'm conscious Agri-Tech, and I'm conscious Tim Morden sat at the front from DEFRA, and DEFRA have got a huge interest in Agri-Tech, which is fantastic. So have DCIT, so have Department of Business and Trade. Sometimes those government departments don't quite pull in the same direction at the same time. Tim's looking at me. I think it's fair enough. And actually we don't, and actually and we've been on a bit of a learning curve with catapults. Actually what they're able to do is really to cut through and give some of that cohesive focus, and that gives momentum. And I suppose it's probably, let's be honest, less of an issue for farmers, but more about the research and innovation community. So it's about having larger scale, longer term projects. At the moment, we're on a shorter funding cycle for what we try and do. So I think anybody that is coming at it from that academic or research side, that catapult model makes sense. And increasingly, I think catapult models that is broadly understood across government. kind of moves it to another sphere. The other bit I'm quite excited about, Tom, is that ability to tap into some of the other things that the Catapult network is doing. So whether it's around the satellite applications, and Dave, I know Agri-Tech have already got some involvement, whether it's around biomedicines, feels like a missed opportunity. After I left the British Potato Council 25 years ago, I went to work for the US Department of Agriculture. I was always so impressed by the linkages that USDA had into NASA to forecast crop growth, and that was 2 decades ago. We're just not doing those linkages. So I think us working towards becoming a catapult moves us into a different sphere. Dave, I don't know whether you want to add anything on that.
Is this mic working? It is. Tom, two really good questions, Tom. I guess as someone who's been supported by HDB for 30, let's say 20-something years, I'm intimately aware of what the functional targets of a statutory levy board are versus the requirements for the catapult. There are some differences. From an HDB perspective, it's looking at research that is in the domain of providing evidence or support for certain activities in the agricultural sphere. It's more focused. With the catapult and with the centres, we're more, part of our focus is relating to generating economic activity from private sector actors who are delivering products and services to that agricultural community. That's the kind of key differentiator. Back on the catapult thing, yes, the catapult, one of the things which is really important is the Fraunhofer Institutes in Germany have preceded the catapults by many years and have an international reputation. The catapults themselves now have an international reputation. And the food and drink sector, our sector, collectively, you guys, our guys, we don't have a catapult yet. So what do we want? There we go. So it's really important that we focus our energies collectively, and we're looking for your support in this as well to make sure that we land this well and we deliver for you and everybody else in this sector with a fully functioning catapult that delivers for everyone. It will provide us with a leg up. It will provide us with a focus and a level of, let's say, political focus, aside from really strong support from the likes of Tim, etc. But it will provide us with a bigger stage for our sector going forward. So it's really important that we get over that line.
So, Dave, Oxford's too posh for Panto season. Back to the point about AHDB and the difference between us and the farmer angle. And I suppose, look, we've worked with AHDB and they've been partners on some projects. So if I just think about grass check, so one that CL's done, where we've got multiple partners, and that is all about measuring grass growth, combining that data with weather forecasts to predict future grass growth, which facilitates rotational grazing. Simple, right? But an awful lot of data sits behind it. So AHDB are just one of the partners in that, alongside a couple of other levy boards, alongside commercial partners, alongside us putting some money in. So effectively what we've done there, it's a different way of working, and we've made their levy funding go further. All that information is available. Farmers Guardian is the commercial partner on it, or the media partner. And that for me feels like it's potentially a different way of working for farmers and for the levy boards, because they can be part of a consortium. I think we're really conscious that we don't duplicate what is out there. For us, this is all about how do we join up different parts of the network. What I am conscious about, and having think about it from a levy angle, probably if we think about the different TRL levels and essentially go from kind of ideas to impact, actually probably some of the R&D focus is more at the farmer end, and there is a big challenge still around adoption. There is a big opportunity to still get it right, and we're up for trying to help. What we don't want to do is duplicate. We want to see how we can work together. I've got a question from, I'm going to go Adam, the gentleman next to him, then I'll come over there. So.
Thanks. Adam Bedford from Fair Science. I thought about this question when Trish, you were talking, but then I think it's relevant to everyone. How do you deal with IP that arises from these projects? You've got a huge number of stakeholders and partners. How do you deal with those issues?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we sort of talk about initially. So everybody brings their foreground IP or the background IP. We have discussions at a very early stage about where then, if it's developed, we take it. I mean, we don't hold IP ourselves and think, but, you know, we are involved in a lot of that consortium development. So the commercial companies and ourselves will discuss it. I mean, obviously, we're companies and the government pays us. we're here to accelerate that development and adoption. So we'll have the open conversations. You know, at some point we might have helped develop something, and we go, well, actually, that IP, can we bring that into another project to move forward, to move the sector forward? But because we're kind of a neutral party in the middle, we have found it easier sometimes to get those companies around the table that maybe have conflicting commercial things and have that conversation, because they know that we're not trying to sort of, nobody's trying to rip anybody off. We're trying to have that conversation to take it forward. So having the sort of the centre as a neutral party in the middle can help those IP conversations go forward. We've just had a big consortium put together recently where IP was quite sort of contentious, and we managed to sort of sit down and go, okay, you tell us what you've got, you tell us what you've got, we'll check, because we're not holding, and we can make those conversations happen. And that's the good thing about having us as that non-commercial entity, because we haven't actually got the skin in the game. We don't hold that IP. We can be that trusted sort of holding house for that. So that's how we do. We're hoping that, you know, there'll be brilliant projects with IP for the future going forward, but we just nail it down and innovate, and the government are pretty good at sort of helping us with templates on that as well. So, yeah.
I suppose it boils down to the honest broker independence and people being aware that when you're getting involved in some of those projects, that sometimes we're asking them to part their corporate stripes a little bit, which makes it easier, but there's not necessarily any one set template. But happy to pick up if you've, from what you're picking up from Farah, Adam, about any ideas and share knowledge on that. Question to the... Sandy.
Mark Moore from ANCO. This appears to be a great step forward. And as Dave knows, we've had many discussions about how we can get engaged. But what's going to change now, you're combining the centres, that enables us as a large multinational to support you in a better way?
Okay. Three things, I think. One is that we've got, as we combine, we have a greater critical mass of technical expertise. We have our own expertise and our own areas of expertise within each of the centres that we all are aware of. Bringing it all together gives you a critical mass and effectively a one-stop shop for expertise across, we hope, all aspects of primary production and the food sector. That's the first one. I guess the second one is that we have scale, or we will have scale. So we will have the ability to do bigger things, we hope, in the future. Take on bigger, let's say, more challenging projects that can deliver perhaps even in a longer time frame. So the kind of things that we've discussed in the past, things like interoperability and the challenges of the private sector trying to set its own standards, where it's really difficult for the private sector to come together. You don't want the VHS and Betamax is an old person's narrative. But
We're back to the last millennium,
let's say
Dave, right?
Apple and Google or whatever. But where you have those challenges, perhaps we've got that convening authority going forward to try and bring the actors together in that critical mass. I think that's the second one. The third one I've forgotten about, but it'll come back to me. The third one, I guess, is the fact that one of the things that we've been really focusing on is obviously SME activity over the past, I have anyway, 6-7 years or so, to try and generate the new blood, the new ideas. One of the things that we've probably not been so good at is dealing with the multinationals. I mean, that's probably a fair point, is that we've not been tapping into the multinationals to try and understand better what the international opportunity is. And international for our sector is huge. We are here at OFC today, looking at the service in the UK farming sector, but we have a wider remit and brief which is looking at the international opportunity as well. And unless we pull in the multinationals to understand their challenges and the opportunities, we won't have the correct understanding of how we can facilitate UK growth through that global market. That's my three.
I think it's fair to say we've been on a bit of a learning curve around each other's organisations as well, and kind of what are our respective strengths, what do we do well, and yeah, I get from an EPI perspective and precision, helping the startups has been a focus. For me, actually, I suppose I love working with the startup businesses. We can help support them an awful lot through CL, but where good things happen is where you get larger businesses from across the supply chain. So as much as working with startups and innovators, actually, if we want to have impactful change, if we want to do things at scale, particularly around adoption, you need to be working with the Mullers and the Mondeleys of this world, right, to make sure that we got true coverage from across the food supply chain.
Congrats on getting them all together. I think it's a great step. But I think from our side, like being an ag-tech business down here, within a year, our international business is 10 times the size of our UK business, and adoption still is a huge challenge here in terms of how you get ag-tech adoption. And really interested to know how you're going to start working, because some of that I see is just structural limitations of the UK business. Like one example is meat equality. In the US now, because there's eating quality, people are doing genomic testing, and so you're starting to get innovation in the supply chain because there's a $300 difference in a high eating quality animal to a low eating quality for a producer. Like, how are you going to work now to sort of work with those structural limitations, expand those from an adoption perspective? Because, you know, there's AFTB and a view, some of it's protectionist, like you guys should be the ones driving innovation. Where do you go?
Great question. I'm going to look in Helen's direction because part of this ties with that whole kind of behaviour change, knowledge exchange, which I know is important, and then maybe if Trish and Dave want to come in as well. I suppose the other one that I put into the mix as well would be, I know DEFRA are really keen on the adoption focus as well, and I think some of the funding that is potentially in the pipeline is trying to see how do we accelerate adoption and uptake. I think that's one that we flagged as actually we've got a role in terms of adoption, but by the same rationale as even coming together as 3 organisations, we're not going to be the organisation going down every single farm drive trying to change stuff. This is how do we work with the network. But that's my headline thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely, completely agree. And I think it is what we were talking about, you know, just before, is that, you know, every organisation has a role in this, from the startups right the way through to the multinationals, the retailers, the processors, etc. They all have a role. And actually, whether it be as each of the individual centres or when we come together as the new organisation, we have a key role in that collaboration, that development of some of that adoption strategy, call it behaviour change, call it knowledge exchange, all of those different methods that we can use to do that. So actually that's a real opportunity as an independent, as Trish was saying, to engage and to start to look at some of those strategies, bring in some of that more social science research approach that maybe as an industry we haven't been doing as well as we could have done. There are some fantastic social sciences, researchers out there who have never even been on a farm, but actually they're very excited about working in agriculture and even more excited about working in the agri-tech sector. So for me, it's about collaboration. It's about developing strategic, opportunities from the new entrepreneurs right the way through to our large and our multi-internationals. And it's not about everybody doing everything. It's about understanding the audience that we are trying to get adoption, and it's about understanding everybody's role within that and working together.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit about sort of farm network. So getting the technology developed in a way that it's applicable and usable for the end users is a really key part of where I come from. So I'm an engineer by background, so it's making sure that what's developed is actually fit for purpose. We trial and we work with with the companies we work with to make sure that technology is ready for adoption, to get it onto real commercial farms, to get feedback from real commercial farmers. It's not always nice feedback. It's not always the feedback they were hoping for. The technology companies always want somebody to go, it's absolutely brilliant, fine, don't change it. We work with our farmers to make sure that they don't just go, it's rubbish. They go, actually, that's not working for us, and this is why, and this is how we want you to change it. So it's making sure that actually that technology is ready for adoption. And once it's been trialled on farm, we can then get our podcasts, our YouTube videos out, and people can see that technology is actually working and that it's applicable and adoptable, and they don't have to fight with it to make it work within their system.
I suppose the bit, and I'm conscious I'm getting signals from the back to wrap up, so I'll say comment, and then Dave, I'll leave you to final comment and wrap up. But from my perspective, Ian, I think one thing kind of that that some of the business that I'm speaking to really value is that earlier stage thinking about what's going to help farmers with the uptake, and the testing and trialling is part of it, but even going and focus grouping and researching and testing ideas with farmers about actually what's the problem it's trying to fix. And sometimes we develop ideas and they go in search of a problem. Actually going, what's the farmer's problem and how do you best position the innovation to fix it is kind of where we're at and where we're about. But I'm really conscious of time, so I'll let Dave have the last word on that question and to wrap up from this morning.
I'll just say if there's any other questions after the event, I'm sure we'll be around to take them on an individual level. So just taking your point, I do appreciate your scale opportunity internationally, and thank you for that indication that the scale actually for agri-technology is actually beyond the UK. That's an amazing scale opportunity there. And the adoption criteria in different countries are completely different. You can get a much quicker adoption with bigger enterprises and bigger scale of operations. In the UK, we have a number of issues with adoption. A lot of it's actually, from a personal point of view, it's not the farmer. I think it's actually the understanding the farmer of the return on investment. And a very credible return on investment. That's the bottom line. So actually demonstrating that credible return on investment, I think, is #1 priority for any business that wishes to get its technology adopted. And I think, but also communication of that, making sure that that's socialised, getting social scientists involved, absolutely, I think, in communicating that forward. I think these are the key areas for adoption. It is something we're absolutely focused on in the new entity. It will be an absolute focus. I'm personally chairing something on adoption going forward that Tim's consented to. We'll be looking at adoption going forward in a big way to try and unlock the capabilities. But it still boils down to that plain, simple, is there a return on investment, be that investment economic, be it environmental, be it biodiversity, whatever metrics you use is the return on investment. That's what we're hearing. I'm sure that's what you're hearing. I'm going to stand now, if that's okay, Phil, and possibly use the fixed mic. And just quickly wrap up and know that I've got how many minus how many minutes? 1 minute. I have 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to be very brief. Please get ready to leave. Thank you very much for attending today's session. Thank you very much for listening and the questions. We've heard, I was going to give a run through of everybody's presentations, but I don't think I've got time. I think it's really important that we continue to engage with you, that you continue to engage with us. Please communicate. You've got 4 people here that will be circulating here over the coming day and 2 days. Please get in contact. We've got a bunch of really exciting projects. We've got a huge opportunity going forward come next financial year. We look forward to this journey. We look forward to you coming on this journey with us. And as I say, please support us and reach out. If you have things that you wish to say to us, things that you wish to feed back to us, please do it. We're very welcoming and open. And enjoy the rest of the OFC. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry.